Hello, my name is Laura Baum, founder of Laura's Botanicals, and today we're talking about the mindset of self healing. So, learning how to believe in a different version of yourself. And, I would say there's a lot to this holistic mindset talk. If you're really interested in holistic healing or using natural solutions for health, this is a great session to start getting the pieces in place because mindset is like the keystone to it all working out for you. Um, there is a lot going on in the natural health industry. There are different practice modalities that people naturally seek out, or they learn to seek out, like naturopathic medicine, functional medicine. And to be very clear, all of these practices are all coming from different schools, different certifications, different routes of learning. And so they're still rather allopathic, meaning they still kind of conform to this idea of a doctor serves a patient, the doctor knows, the patient doesn't, the doctor gives the information or the medicine to the patient, a solution to the patient can use the solution and get better. But what's really interesting about all that is that there are still a lot of practitioners and doctors who are having trouble getting results with clients, or patients are not seeing results that they desire. And or they're finding that there's gaps in their practices, right? There's gaps in that model. And it's interesting because for a lot of people who are seeking holistic options or natural solutions for health, non RX pharmaceuticals or different routes to their health care, that they are doing that because they were upset or jaded or in doubt of the conventional allopathic method to begin with. They didn't like the structure that they were finding. And when you see things like their, actual physiological things that happen when people see doctors, like the white coat syndrome, where you actually get a higher heart rate or higher blood pressure as a result from seeing a doctor, but there's actual basis for that conversation. And the restructuring and the refiguring out of, is this the only way to see clients? Is this the only way to see patients? Um, so I'm really there for that conversation. And that's why I've chosen to do a collaborative platform where I talk vigorously with other practitioners, see how we can better help each other to make an impact this year. And the mindset piece is huge because when you ever you have a patient or a client, or if it's yourself on your own health journey, you know that mindset plays a huge part of it. If your clients or patients or yourself, if you know you believe in something, it's gonna happen, right? So welcome, welcome, welcome. And I wanna believe, I'm sorry, I'm just doing something out of the way here real quick. I had something on my screen. I tried to go on my mobile, but it would not work. So I'm doing my desktop. So I just adjust my camera real quick a little bit. Thanks. So, when I say mindset, I don't just mean just think positive. Okay. I, oops, let me make sure that I'm still alive. Oh, I am. Hi, how are you? Okay. Let me go back to where I was. I had a little write up here to help me assist me today. I don't mean that everything's gonna magically change. I don't believe in magic. Magic is not really, well, I believe in miracles. I believe in direct manifestations because I've seen that happen. But what I'm talking about is just believing in the other version of your life that is possible before you're willing to consistently move towards it, right? You have to believe that there is something that is worth going for if you're gonna actually put the pieces in place to go for them. And the mindset piece is one that's really important to carve out and to help ourselves actually handle more effectively. It's good to become aware of how mindset hurdles can get in the way of your success or your effectiveness. So it's being able to kind of like stop those things or to re-navigate those things if necessary. Healing isn't usually just one big decision. I love that because it's not. It's not just one thing, it's one choice you made. It's usually a compounded effect of many choices. It's a collection of small decisions that you make over and over again. It's consistency. It's what you do today, and that's what you do also tomorrow. And then what you continue doing when you don't immediately see the results you're hoping for, right? A lot of times people fail with herbs or holistic natural solutions because they don't take them long enough or the right amount. They're not understanding what is a success that they should continue building upon. So it's important to be able to identify that. You can't always be consistent with something if deep down you don't believe it's actually possible for you, right? That's key for all of our services, for my services. If I don't know that my clients know that they're getting results, or if they tell me they're not, or if they don't tell me they're not, or if they say, you know what, it's just not for me, and we can't get to the bottom of why. It's usually because they don't believe it's possible for them, or that the way that it's presented to them by you will work for them. They don't believe that they are capable of doing it, or they don't believe that it's going to be capable for them because of the way it's structured. So that's what I want you to explore today. And what does it mean to believe in an alternative version of yourself? And I'm going to share a personal story about how this kind of changed my life, how it changed my life rather. So the version of me, there was a period of my life when I was living in New York City. I've most recently moved to the southeast, a city, Richmond, Virginia, where I'm currently based and have been for the last 14 years. I was working previously in New York City in a very fast-paced environment, which is what you assume or expect when you hear someone's coming from New York. My life was very focused on doing, achieving, moving, accomplishing. I know that a lot of us think that we can relate to that, probably can. We've taught that success looks like being busy, that it's very move from the bottom up, right? It's going from one tier to the next. Um, it's being productive, it's having more, it's doing more, it's getting somewhere. And for a long time, I was operating within that mental framework. But something started happening. My inner voice started getting louder. And honestly, I still don't completely know why. All of a sudden, my instincts and my intuition was just like basically saying, this is not for you. This is not for you. And I also don't know why at that particular time I suddenly started hearing the voice so clearly and that it was telling me to do something very different from the life I was living. It was telling me I needed to leave. I needed to go somewhere else. I needed to slow down. I needed to get my hands in the dirt. I needed to grow things. So I also got this very strong intuitive pull to grow a garden. And at first, that didn't necessarily make any sense to the version of me that I was at the time, because didn't gardening then didn't look like success. It just was this like image in my mind of joy and happiness and peace, which I had examples of as a child growing up. I am a millennial, so we were outside. There were slugs, there were cherry trees, there were distinct memories of a garden in our backyard, being happy, belly to the earth, exploring and being in tune with nature. And I didn't understand, but now I do because I've studied early childhood education for the last 20 years, is that, those are the pillars for spiritual development. Spiritual development is connecting children, young children, to the pillars of awe, curiosity, reverence, and expanding upon those things as a pursuit of healing. Spiritual development is crucial for all development. If you strengthen spiritual development in young children, you strengthen their ability to read, to write, to get along with their peers, to have a sense of purpose. And so I guess this was all coming together for me at this time where I was sitting on these rooftops of Brooklyn and I could feel the heat of the intensity of the city and the loudness of the city. I could see my journey in front of me, which was, continuing to go into really intense corporate type of positions or just performance based positions where I was going to be asked so much of my body and myself, but in denial of my spirit. And I knew then that the answer was to leave, and it was important to pay attention. And it's interesting that since then, I've learned of all these gardens and projects for gardens in New York, right? Now I'm aware of all the opportunities that are presented there, but I wasn't at the time because that wasn't who I was. So I moved somewhere else, I started gardening, and that decision completely transformed my life. One of the first things I grew was a rosemary plant, a sage plant, and I grew them from starts in little containers, and it was just such a revelation to me that these plants not only were incredible, but that they were gateways to understanding a whole history of how plants have been used for herb or medicine and for helping the body therapeutically. There was something incredibly powerful about getting my hands into the dirt. Not intellectually, not theoretically, just actually doing it, feeling the soil, planting something, watching it grow, learning to identify plants, understanding what was growing around me, and paying attention to the seasons. And suddenly, nature wasn't just something I looked at, it wasn't just scenery. It wasn't something I consumed through a screen or visited occasionally. I was developing an actual relationship with nature. It was like seeing that tree that I saw every other day and I knew its name. I knew its story. I knew where it came from. I knew its purpose, its multi-purposes. I knew its function in the local ecology of the city, but I also knew that it belonged somewhere else and that how it grew somewhere else meant something too, to a lot of people. And I think that distinction is really important because we live in a very materialistic culture. We're constantly being encouraged to acquire new things, buy things, upgrade things, consume things. And I started discovering that there was another way of relating to the world, a way that wasn't based on what I could buy. It was based on what I could experience, what I could learn, what I could cultivate, what I could participate in. And my mental state began to change. I became more grounded. I became more connected. I started paying attention differently. And I started realizing that maybe some of the things that I had been taught about what creates a good life weren't the whole story. Maybe there was something else. Maybe there was another version of me available. And that was a huge mindset shift. Do you relate to this? Right? I think we all get into these these types of situations where we can feel our pull towards nature in this raw way, right? If we go to the ocean, or if we decide to spend time in a wild space. We have these inner conflicts about what's happening in our modern world, but we relate to each other when we just want to talk about what's beautiful about nature. It's because there's parts of us inside of us that are still nature. We are still nature in totality, but I mean intrinsically in our nervous system, it actually is something that we require for our own health and adjustment. And here's the thing I want you to think about too. Sometimes the biggest barrier to creating change isn't that we don't know what to do. Sometimes it's that we don't believe the thing we're doing can actually change us. So let's think about that. You can give someone a list of healthy habits. You can tell them to drink more water, all this optimizing, right? These new watches that tell you when to go outside, when to work out, when to do this, when to do that. We're under that control of something else to tell us what to do. Just like when I opened the conversation talking about that top down, talking to you, they know better, you don't know, and you need to be told what to do to get better. You can tell people to change their routines. You can tell them to slow down. But if they don't believe those things have a place in their life, how consistent are they really going to be? And that's why I believe mindset work has to come first. We have to start first with imagining, what if my life could feel different? What if my life could feel different? Okay. What if my life could actually feel different? And what in my life could feel different? What if I could feel more connected? What if I could have a different relationship with my body? What if I could learn how to support myself differently? What if I could develop a relationship with plants? What if I could create daily rituals that support the person I want to become? And maybe, most important, what if I don't have to become a completely different person? Right? I like that one because I think a lot of the mentality and assumption around herbalism specifically is that you have to be this really kind of hippie looking person who goes off the grid, who goes to these kumbaya fires and like sits around in conferences and gives hugs and kisses and had body hair and smells like patchouli. And I don't like that paradigm or that assumption at all because I don't fit in it at all. And I like that we're seeing different examples of what is holistic now. That holistic could just be the everyday person, the nurse, like people in my program, Everyday Herbalism Fast Track, the full-time nurse, the full-time engineer, the full-time autoimmune warrior who's currently figuring out how to do 10 different virtual jobs so that she can work at home and sustain herself through her fibromyalgia. I like the context of everyday lives and people working their everyday lives and still saying, you know what? The conventional works. I get it, but it doesn't always work for me. And I need something else to sustain my desires and my beliefs in myself. I do believe in the value of nature, the value of different innovative structures of how patients can be taken care of by their doctors and their practitioners. I love that conversation of what if I don't have to do a million different things to get the results I seek? What if I just need to reconnect with a part of myself that I've already lost touch with? That was a huge realization for me. I wasn't necessarily becoming someone new. I was just becoming more reconnected to my past self, to myself. And this is where my journey with holistic health and herbalism really comes into the picture because I had to shift some of my own beliefs. I had to become open to the possibility that there were other ways of supporting my health. And I'm not saying that you have to throw everything you've ever believed out the window because it's probably not true. Some things you've done that are worked. And I never want you to let go of those things if that's the case. I'm not saying that holistic health means rejecting conventional medicine. No, by no means. I personally carry an EpiPen. I've had anaphylaxis not once, but twice. There's no way I would completely believe that I could not put myself into a situation for emergency medicine if necessary. But I'm talking about becoming curious, being willing to learn, being willing to develop your own relationship with the natural world, being willing to open up that capacity for understanding what tools you could do if the situation presented itself. To start encouraging your confidence in yourself, saying, you know what, I have evidence that this could support me in this situation when this situation occurs. And for me, I realized that if I was going to use holistic options in my life, I couldn't just intellectually believe that they were interesting. I had to believe they were worth practicing. And there's a difference there. You can read about herbs, you can save herbal recipes, you can make beautiful Pinterest boards and save your Instagram photos. You can like the next person who has a farm and say, God, I just want a farm. I want to have an apothecary. Gosh, I just want this so much. You can follow herbalists online. You can buy herbs. You can try to have a cabinet of herbs. You can have an entire bookshelf full of herbal books. You can buy hundreds of courses. But that's not necessarily an herbal lifestyle because it's not integrated. An herbal lifestyle happens when you start incorporating those things into your life, and that takes consistency. It takes integration. It takes help. It takes help from the right person or team to understand how to make the things part of your life, how to know what to let go of, how to know what to prioritize, how to know that it's okay to just be who you are in the moment and to support you when you make your decisions. Consistency comes from believing, and this matters. This is worth my time. This is part of who I'm becoming. And so I want to ask you something. And if you're watching this live, put your answer in the comments. What is the alternative version of you that you're trying to become? Not the perfect version, not the version that has everything figured out, not the version that never struggles. I'm talking about the version of you who feels more connected. Maybe that person's more grounded. Maybe they're more confident, more energy. Maybe it's spending more time outside. Maybe it's reducing symptoms of a particular painful situation you're going through or a particular health focus that you're finding to be absolutely red flag. I need to take care of this now. Maybe she trusts herself more. Maybe he listens to his inner voice. What does that version of you look like? And here's another question. What would that version of you do consistently that you're not doing right now? Because that's where this becomes actually practical. You don't have to transform your entire life tomorrow. In fact, I don't think that's actually sustainable. So start small. Maybe it's learning one plant. Maybe it's making one herbal tea. Maybe it's spending 10 minutes outside without your phone. Maybe it's growing one herb. Maybe it's paying attention to what's growing in your own yard. The point isn't that the habit has to be drastic. The point is that you're teaching yourself that I am someone who does this. And every time you repeat that behavior, you're reinforcing a new identity. You're creating evidence for yourself and you're saying, I can take care of myself. I can listen to myself. I can learn. I can be consistent. I can develop a relationship with nature and I can make choices that support the life I want. Eventually, those things begin to compound. That's what happened for me. I, of course, there are still things I am absolutely working on, but there are definite shifts from where I started. Um, it's just being able to understand the the tools deeper and to have particular rhythms built into your life that you can naturally seamlessly go into that reinforce your habit. I listened to that voice telling me to leave, so I did. I moved, I planted, I learned, I paid attention, I changed my beliefs, and slowly I became a different version of myself. And I surrounded myself with people who could help me with the what ifs, right? What if I can't? Should I? Here are the things that I'm going through. Can you just listen to me and tell me what things stand out to you as high priority or things I should focus on first? I invested in tools and in education, but I also realized that I had to make my education work practically into my lifestyle. So I created an organizational structure so that I can better handle the information and build upon it as I learned more through action. So if you're somewhere in your healing journey right now and you're feeling frustrated because you're not where you want to be, maybe there's something that's going on in your health and you're just kind of stuck. I want you to remember this. You don't have to have the entire path figured out because that's crazy. But you do have to become willing to believe that another path exists. That's the place to start. Maybe your first step isn't a massive lifestyle or overhaul. I just spoke to on my podcast a couple weeks ago someone who works with environmental design and helps people take things out of their outside of their house that are unhealthy for them. But she said, there's like 100,000 things to take care of, but you have to just start with one thing. So the one thing she recommended for everybody is clean their water, change your water. And it's all about sustainable action. What's the one thing you can do this week? And then once you've done that, what's the next thing? Maybe your first step is just simply listening to your body, listening to your intuition, listening to that quiet voice that might be trying to tell you something. Because sometimes that voice knows something before your logical mind can explain it. Okay. So that's my invitation for you today. Because my inner voice brought me into the world of herbalism and holistic living. And believe me, I didn't even know the word herbalism existed. I didn't know the word holistic existed. I knew it was around me, like fluttering around me through different examples before that, but it wasn't that. My life before it shifted into holistic was, you know, this typical kind of move, you know, use, consume, create, combust, right? It wasn't about connecting to nature in that way. But reconnecting to nature from my childhood is absolutely the piece that worked, right? Because we all have an example of nature in our lives. And again, crucial for our beginning spiritual development. And spirituality is a crucial part of healing. So if this resonated with you today, tell me in the comments what your inner voice has been asking you to pay attention to lately. Okay. Your inner voice is that little voice inside of you that's saying at different points, hey, you shouldn't do that. Or, hey, you're self sabotaging yourself right now. Or you feel this energetic resistance to something because it's not quite aligned with who you are. And you know that. We know that all the time. Sometimes we know the boundaries are there and we cross them anyway because we know we can handle the consequences of it. Other times we just do it because we think it's going to be a good opportunity, regardless. Sometimes we feel desperate or scarcity. And so we just take upon things that aren't right because it's just what we think everybody else expects us to do. So our intuitions are actually quite powerful. And it's our nervous systems and how they're wired from our ancient beginnings that are there to protect us and to serve us. And yes, they're rooted in nature. The life you're looking for may begin with believing that a different version of your life is possible. And so shifting into that holistic mindset is the beginning of that. It's just to believe. Thank you so much. So tomorrow I will be going into the things that you should know about the basics of herbalism. So it's definitely a very practical session for my day 2 of becoming an herbalist. Tune in tomorrow at 2 p.m. and we will start promptly then and jump into that topic. Our future topics after that, just so you know, because we'll be going live every day this week, we will be talking about tomorrow is the basis of herbalism and what you need to know, right? Not everything is necessary for when you're getting started. The third day, herbal medicine. Thank you, Angel. The third day, herbal medicine making like a professional herbalist without the years of clinical work. So I'll be sharing some just straightforward, this is what you need. Thank you. Yeah, a lot to think about for sure. And if it is too much, just let me know. I can always break it down or simplify it even more for you. We yeah, but thank you. We are definitely a huge fan of the mindset session. It's a very juicy one to wrap our heads around, but um I'm glad you're here. And then after that, we'll focus on how to have all the herbs and resources that you will need for your holistic lifestyle and how to do this affordably, right? Because the thing I hate about a lot of holistic health packages from practitioners is that they're not upfront about the actual practical cost of any of this, right? They're like, "Oh, it's like $50 or 200 to work with me every month." I'm like, "Okay, but what is all the testing gonna cost me? What's all of the um upfront costs?" Because they're like, "Well, we're gonna change your lifestyle." Like, "Okay, so I'm hearing you want me to detox my home, get an air purifier, detox my food." Cha-ching, cha-ching. That is like air purifier is like $1,000, and then, if I have to, like, get all new food, gluten-free food, like, that's an overhaul of your entire diet, right? And what I'm saying is that that's not necessary. It's not necessary. When you are, beginning to think about shifting holistic lifestyle, I actually completely focus on a direction of self-reliance. So it's creating the pieces so that you have what you need when you need it and doing it in a sustainable way. And lastly, we'll talk about really good opportunities for people wanting to make some money helping others with herbalism, right? I'm always a huge fan of this topic because there is quite a bit of impact that herbalists specifically can have. And we'll go into those opportunities on the last day together. And so we hope to see you, Angel, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Otherwise, we'll be sharing clips of our lives all over our platforms for the next week or two. And the replays will be available through Substack. This is our first time going live on Substack. Thanks for joining us for our official Substack launch. Become an Herbalist is our kickoff event for that. And I hope you enjoyed this session on the replay as well. Thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of your afternoon. Take care.